Perhaps if COVID-19 had happened in 2012 or 2010, the story of COVID would have been a bit different, but it didn't. COVID-19 broke essentially in 2020. By then, relations between China and the United States, as we all know so well, deteriorated greatly. So right from the outset, COVID-19 was submerged in the growing assault by the United States on China. Right from the outset, President Trump was determined to use COVID as pivotal in his assault on China. This, from then on, this situation never changed. Even when COVID finally arrived in the West in March and April onwards, with the United States suffering hugely, as did Europe, for example, this campaign against China never stopped. Of course, initially, China was on the back foot. It was trying to find out what it was, how to deal with it, what were the best measures, and so on. And it was blamed in that period for secrecy, for cover-up, for delay, and so on. But even when the pandemic arrived in the West, this anti-China rhetoric did not cease, was not lessened. On the contrary, in some ways, in many ways, in fact, it was heightened. Why was it heightened? Well, now, previously, the United States had thought it got a propaganda advantage. Now, of course, the boot was on the other foot, as we say in English, and the United States and the West were on the defensive and doing very badly. And of course, the stakes were now very high in this, as regards to COVID-19, because COVID-19 was probably the greatest test of governance the world has seen since the Second World War. The United States and the West failed miserably. China, on the contrary, has been extraordinarily successful. And so what became, what was an attack on China when they thought they scored a bullseye, became what I would describe as a strategy of distraction and deflection, to try and tarnish China's reputation and name in the world as much as possible and distract from the poor performance of the West. And so the campaign just against China has just rolled on. I mean, there was the call for the international team to investigate China's responsibility in terms of the origins of the pandemic and so on, even though, of course, the contribution globally to the pandemic has been huge. The responsibility is hugely greater on the part of the West than in the case of China. I mean, the fact is that to this day, China has only lost 4,636 people. United States today, 616,000 people. I mean, in terms of a comparison, they are obviously, incomparable, because China has performed, I would say, magnificently, and the United States has performed abysmally. But the campaign has rolled on. I mean, now you get Biden returning to the theme of the lab leak and giving his security agencies 90 days to come up with, what should be done about this. And the latest ridiculous, absurd example is the Bloomberg and other reporting that, on a ranking, COVID resilience ranking, the United States comes number one. I mean, this can't be taken seriously. This is the most absurd proposal I think I've seen. The fact of the matter is that even now, today, the United States is more or less top of the world league, over 100,000 cases. Compare that with China, which has now a new outbreak, and the total number of infections per day is now a bit over 100. Compare that with the situation of 100,000 in the United States. I mean, this is chalk and cheese. It's ridiculous to even put them in the same category in relationship to the competence of their handling of the epidemic. But I fear this is going to continue, you know, because what we are seeing from the outset in relationship to COVID-19 is that geopolitics has usurped science. This has been the case not only in the propaganda war, but the very way in which Trump handled the epidemic in the United States. And truth has been abandoned in favor of political polemic. Will that change? No, I think not. The stakes are too high. The United States cannot afford, in its view, to allow its reputation to be damaged as it has been and will be, but it tries valiantly to distract people from the reality of the situation. Biden has not been, in some ways, as bad as Trump. I mean, I'm thinking here particularly that the racist language, the talk of the Kung flu and Wuhan virus, China virus, and so on, all that kind of stuff that Trump went in for, which was very damaging to in American public opinion. Biden has not continued that, but in every other sense, he has actually continued in terms of the lab leak and so on. So I don't expect things really to change. COVID-19 is mired in a sort of Cold War rhetoric, Cold War language, Cold War assault by the United States, and this is going to continue. Thank you very much.